Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our FCICA educational webinar series. My name is Jenkins. I'm the Senior Technical Coordinator here at HPS Schönox. We are pleased to bring you this series today. Thank you for our partners at FCICA for allowing us to host this event. Hopefully we can gain a little bit more knowledge through this COVID crisis to better ourselves so we're better prepared to be the best flooring contractors in the nation. When all this thing comes back into fruition. We're going to go through why do we need to do floor prep from the everyday to the extreme. We're all facing these types of challenges in our marketplace. It's just a good idea to kind of sit back and look at what are we looking at on the market, what do we need to be addressing up front in order to make that most successful installation. Just remember here at HPS Schönox, we do want to kind of show you our mantra that we are on it. So if you're in need of any type of technical assistance throughout this series, feel free to contact me here at the Florence Support Center with HPS Schönox. I will be glad to do that for you. We'll also have some time for question and answer at the end of the series, so stay tuned for that as well. I just want to bring up one statement here. Ben Franklin said, "A fail to prepare is to prepare to fail." And this statement could not be a more true statement in our flooring industry. The preparation process is just as important as the floor covering process is itself. In fact, it can actually make or break your finished floor covering installation. We're spending a lot of time in our marketplace with owners, with architects, with interior designers, with decision makers, trying to get to that point that we can make a decision on the final flooring, whether that be LVT, that is carpet, wood floor, ceramic tile. A lot of time and expense has been made in order to prepare that project for completion. We have colors picked out, we have design picked out, we have texture and finish. All this is going into place. And what we're trying to do is get down to the end of the project that we have something that is actually magazine worthy. That customer expectation when you leave the office with that storyboard or that color board is that when they're done looking back on that project, it is going to be magazine worthy. They're looking for something, a more educated end user is now looking for something that they could see in FCICA's website and on their magazine covers. That is what we should be proud to have. That should be what we should be striving to achieve. We need to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can for our companies and for our customers and for our owners. So they're looking for that beautiful finished floor. Top left picture, large body ceramic tile. Middle picture, even a larger body tile, polished concrete may be the instance, LVTs, VCTs, interior, exterior, sports flooring, wood floor installations. All of these are challenges that you face every day, and it should be at the end of the day, your pictures are the ones that we're broadcasting on our sites. They're the ones that we're sharing on LinkedIn and we're sharing on Instagram. We are proud of these products. This is what we're trying to achieve. But if we do not address the subfloor prep, then we will never get to the level of finish that is expected. We'll never get to the smoothness that we would not see telegraphing in LVTs and vinyls. We will never get to the finish that we would not see lippage in our ceramic tiles, blistering underneath our epoxy coatings, failures in subfloor prep. So we need to make sure that we're addressing these things and these items up front. So exactly what are we looking at? There's just some basic rules that each one of us needs to follow when we're looking at these job sites. Before we put our first piece of tile on the back of the truck, first bucket of glue on the back of the truck, we need to address some of these issues to make sure that they are corrected or they are within standard for us to have a successful installation. What are our site conditions? What are we looking at as far as the condition of the existing concrete or gypsum or wood substrate? Are these subfloors that we're looking at level and smooth? Are we meeting today's standards that we need to achieve, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Is there existing flooring on there that needs to be addressed first? Is it well bonded? Does it need to be removed? What is the removal procedures that we need to do? One thing that we face a lot in today's industry is moisture. Has that slab been tested? Do we have a report back that is something that we could go to the manufacturers with to make sure we get a warranted installation? We don't want to have callbacks related to moisture. Well, again, we'll go into that in a little bit of detail here shortly. But if you're looking at your site conditions, this is normally the first thing your project managers, your SIMs see when they are facing with a job site. We're doing that first initial walkthrough. Without doing any further research, without doing any further investigation, without doing additional testing, we can normally assess site conditions up front. Are they ready or are they not ready for installation? The gentleman standing in the middle of the room on your bottom right-hand screen, you can automatically tell that this is probably not a substrate ready for LVT installation. I think there may be just a little bit of floor prep that needs to go on before we continue with this project. If we see these site conditions up front, they need to be addressed. I cannot stress this enough for SIMs. If we're our project managers on these projects, these need to be addressed up front as soon as we see them, so we can be proactive and to plan a successful installation. If we do not, then we're at the jeopardy of we should have told the owner, we should have told the general contractor, and we wind up with the liability. So even if you're doing multifamily installation, high-rise installation on gypsum floors, some of these gypsum substrates are not able to hold the new floor covering that we're talking about. In times past, we've done a lot of soft goods. We've done a lot of stretched in carpet over gypsum subfloors. That is not the case as much as it used to be. We're seeing a lot more LVTs, sheet goods, wood floors, ceramic tiles over these existing gypsum substrates. These particular site conditions need to be addressed. We need to work up front with the project owner and the general contractors to let them know that these site conditions are not acceptable for our new floor covering. We may need to check to see if even these gypsum substrates will even hold enough compressive strength that we can put some of our floor covering on it. ASTM 710 is a standard that each one of you guys should be getting a copy of and studying. ASTM 710 states if we do not have compressive strength of 3,000 PSI or higher, then a lot of times these substrates are not ready for resilient floor covering. Some of your manufacturers will not warranty their products if we don't meet the site conditions up front. We see this a lot of cases right now in our industry. We're just trying to put Band-Aids on the situations. Proper site prep and proper site condition prep is critical. If we put this picture in our job sites, we're opening ourselves up for liability. That original designer and that original architect designed that floor system to meet certain UL ratings. We need to find out what those ratings may have been. Adding a wood patch into a gypsum substrate may actually put you up for liability if we're not addressing them properly. If I was a flooring contractor, I would have this removed and try to go back with like material so we could maintain the site conditions to maintain UL ratings so I don't wind up with a lawsuit. So the next one that we normally face, especially for commercial flooring contractors, is subfloors being either level or smooth. And that is two totally different items, two totally different addressings that we need to do. Sometimes the architect designers require floors just to be smooth. A ramp going into one building to the next will not be level, but we may need to have it smooth. There are subfloor products out there, either self-levelers or skim coat patch repair material that can make the job smooth and not necessarily level. We need to find out the customer's expectation of what is desired. Are we looking for a flat substrate, smooth? We can do that. If we're looking for a level substrate, that may be a different type of material that we need to look at in order to correct that issue. And especially in commercial applications, we're getting into a class of FF and FL measurements. You will get those reports a lot of times from your general contractor. Your concrete contractor must meet FF and FL requirements in order for him to get paid on his part. But that may not always correlate or equal what is required for us flooring contractors to make it level for our flooring. There's a lot of question in our industry, what exactly are we talking about with FF and FL numbers? What does it mean? Just to kind of give you a little history, a gentleman named Alan Face developed the F number system back in 1979. This system was actually called the Face Floor Profile Numbering System. This test was eventually developed into the ASTM standard E1155. Mr. Face was also the inventor of the dipstick floor profiler and the F meter, which is used to measure both floor flatness and floor levelness. So if you're looking at a FF measurement or a flat levelness, floor flatness, these numbers are what engineering firms and architectural firms use to determine the floor flatness. It is a measurement of how wavy the concrete is after placement. Kind of gnarly, right? So this would be a surfer's best friend. If our FF numbers giving are both the height of the wave and the distance between each one of the waves. This measurement is normally taken every foot within the first 72 hours after the concrete is poured and placed. It's a numerical result giving a professional the numbers they need to determine how flat the floor is. The higher the number, the smoother the concrete surface will be. For example, an FF of 25 normally looks around 1/4 and 10 feet, which is the standard for Division III contractors and your concrete placement contractors, 1/4 and 10 foot. An FF reading of 50 will be an 1/8 and 10 foot, which is normally the Division IX standard. There's a big difference between our F25 and our F50. Again, what is required for the concrete contractor may not go with what we need for our floor covering. So we need to understand what those numbers are. We can always hope for FF 100, which will be a 1/16 and 100 feet. That's normally can be achieved with self-leveling. Very hard to get that type of finish in normal concrete placement. The other number that you will see in the industry is FL numbers. FL is what the engineer and the architect use to determine flatness. Flatness of a slab is an integral part of the design documents and are based on the intended use of your substrate. Levelness requirements for a pool decking are not necessarily the same levelness numbers that you would need for an MRI room in a hospital. To determine your FL numbers, the elevation of the concrete is measured every 10 feet, again within the first 72 hours after your concrete is poured. As with FF numbers, the higher the number, the more flat and true that slab is. For example, an FL of 50 is twice as flat or as level, I should say, as an FL of 25. So you should keep in mind when you're faced with a multiple story construction, if you're doing high rise, if you're doing a hospital situation or second floor of a school, the construction of FL numbers, flatness, levelness numbers, do not apply to substrates that are placed above grade. Elevated concrete slabs normally sag once their supporting members are removed. So contractors that will rely on FL numbers on elevated slabs only after the supporting members have been removed. So if your concrete contractor is getting FL numbers within the first 72 hours, they may not work when you're on the job site getting ready for your flooring installation. So for general office spaces, if you're looking for something with carpeting on it as a floor covering, you can normally expect anywhere from an FF of 25 and an FL of 20. For an airport terminal or maybe a shopping mall, something with a large format porcelain tile on the floor, FF of 30 or 35, FL of 20 to 25. If you're doing assisted living centers, classrooms with VCT or LVT, FF number of 45, FL 35. Most critical areas like hospital room MRIs, television studios will require normally greater FF numbers of 50 and FL numbers greater than 50. So we need to check our specifications to determine what is expected of us and what is expected for flatness and floor levelness. We need to make sure these numbers before we get on job site. So when we're doing our job site walks, we can determine whether we're meeting spec or not. Okay. So once we determine whether flat or smooth, if we do not address these areas, then we wind up with these callbacks. You look the picture top left, flooring contractor picked out a nice commercial LVT. The designer was happy and ecstatic about what they picked out. Installation was installed. You can see all of the undulation underneath that LVT. That is not giving the customer the full expectation. That is not the magazine worthy product that we're talking about. We're putting our 2x4s and our straight edges down, and we're seeing these uneven substrates, these unlevel substrates. These need to be addressed up front with our general contractors and our owners to let them know that we need to address subfloor prep up front and not after, so we don't wind up in the conditions that we're seeing on the top left corner. Second thing we need to look at when we're talking about on our initial job walkthrough, what existing floor covering may be down. Is it existing ceramic tile that is maybe well bonded? Do we have the height requirements that if we leave that material in place, can we do another installation of either self-leveling or we're going tile over tile installation? Is that acceptable with the substrate? The gentleman sweeping the door at the door frame, we need to look at these conditions to determine whether it's acceptable for that or not. Will removal need to be made? A lot of times we don't know what the subfloor prep is required until demolition is complete. We at Schönox try to help eliminate some of this demolition, but sometimes there's needs for that. Existing carpet. Again, we'll talk about it in a little more detail when you call me after the webinar. What can we do with existing carpet finishes? On the right-hand side, we have an existing vinyl asbestos tile. Is that going to be removed? Is it removed by mechanical means? Is it going to be removed by chemical abatement, or is it going to remain in place? We need to find out these conditions to determine what we're going to do in future. If we're doing a chemical abatement, is the abatement chemical compatible with what we're doing with top surfacing? So we need to be asking these questions up front to make sure we're addressing subfloor prep before we get down to the end of the project and have an issue to work with and to deal with. The floor covering manufacturers for top surface really need to know this information from us as flooring contractors to help make the right determination of what flooring may need to be used in these particular situations. So the more information we have up front, the better the flooring contractor and flooring manufacturer can come together with the owner and the designer to get to the right process that we need. Last one we want to talk about a little bit for is what we need to look at up front is moisture issues. If we're going into new construction, just looking at a slab, we cannot determine whether there is a moisture problem or lack of a moisture problem, if we want to look at it that way. Those slabs need to be tested and need to be tested correctly. And I would even suggest, as a manufacturer that deals with moisture mitigation products, even third-party testing, so we can get verified results for these. If we're going on an existing substrate and we're seeing the blistering of the coating like we're seeing top left, VCT that's been damaged, it's got glue bleeding through the joints, it's got lifting of tiles, wood floors that are warped, pulling back the existing flooring and seeing emulsified adhesive. Maybe we have mold and mildew problems underneath our sheet goods or underneath our carpet. These are pretty much easy to address up front with owners to say there's an existing moisture problem that needs to be addressed. But we need to know what we need to know in order to make an informed decision. So before you start installation on a new construction project, make sure we're getting the right moisture readings. ASTM gives us 2170 or 1869, calcium chloride testing or RH probe. Different manufacturers recognize both or either one. If you want to go by what is recognized most often, it's 2170, which is your calcium, or excuse me, your RH Pro. So we need to make sure we're getting these materials tested up front. If you look at moisture-related flooring failures, that one is one of the biggest headaches each year that causes us to have flooring replacement. Floor Trends magazine said in May of this year that $1 billion are being spent annually on moisture remediation. That to me does not even count what we're talking about by displacing an owner, displacing a business or a healthcare facility. If we get into a moisture problem that we have to remove floor covering and now do moisture mitigation. If we do not address it up front, it becomes very costly, not only for the owners, but also for the flooring contractors. You're not making a lot of money trying to go back and do a replacement once they have a moisture problem after the fact. So these things need to be addressed up front. We need to look at floor prep before we look at floor finish. All of these things that we're talking about will help us give a more successful installation. So now what? Once we see job site conditions, we need to address those conditions in writing. We need to send a letter to the contractor that we're dealing with. I would suggest we do that to the owner that we're dealing with, and it would be very beneficial to address those conditions to your flooring manufacturers, the guy and gals that are producing the vinyl floor covering, the carpet, the ceramic tile, the wood flooring, the subfloor prep material, your adhesives, your thin sets. Get that to them in writing so they are aware of the conditions that you're dealing with. Then we can take the necessary steps to maintain the warranty. We need to give you something in writing that you can give to your owner that maintains that full warranty. Find out what the manufacturer's recommendations are. One manufacturer may give you a recommendation of doing moisture mitigation, and then we need to find out, is there a compatibility between that product and your top floor finish? If we address this up front, it makes it much easier to do than we're on the job site trying to scramble to figure out exactly what it is we need to do, and is there a compatibility issue or not. If we come together up front, we can make an informed decision to make sure we have better processes. So even over gypsum, we have found out that we have a weak gypsum substrate, needs to be resurfaced. There are several manufacturers on the market that produce levelers that goes over the gypsum substrates to give you a smooth, safe, sound installation for your new LVTs, for your new carpets, your hardwoods, ceramic tile, whatever the case may be. We've addressed it up front. We're giving the owner a good substrate. We're giving the owner a good top surface. They're happy at the end. Then we can have that magazine-worthy installation that we're talking about. Maybe we're going into retail. We found out that we do not have the floor flatness or the floor levelness that we need. We've addressed it up front. We have a plan in place. We've done some pre-planning to say that it's going to take us X number of days to do the floor flatness and floor levelness. It may be simple skim coating as on the left. It may be self-leveling on the right. Your manufacturer can help you decide what course of action is the best to avoid downtime and to avoid time constraints. All these can be done with a little bit of pre-planning of Y prep. What is existing floor finishing? We talked about a little earlier. If there is a ability of height in order for us to do maybe a leveling over the ceramic tile that you're seeing on the left-hand screen, we can prime, pour, remove the need for demolition, taking that out of our landfills, give you a new substrate for your new LVT going down that central corridor. You wind up with a magazine-worthy installation that you're proud of. I will say that at HPS Schönox, we do have products that can go over existing carpet that you see in the middle screen. You can contact us here at Technical Services, and we'll get into more detail after that. Maybe you had an existing vinyl asbestos tile that could be solidified with an epoxy material self-leveled with one of the synthetic gypsum or natural gypsum products ready for installation. So we can address these subfloor needs up front. Maybe it gets to the situation that they have to be removed and we can see what's lying underneath. Then we can address that again, pre-planning, so we make sure we're getting successful installation that is warranted and magazine worthy at the end. and moisture remediation. Several companies out there, we are included producing moisture mitigation products. We can address those up front on what subfloor prep needs to happen before the moisture mitigation comes in. It doesn't be shot blasted. Does it need to be grinded? What type of product are we using? Is it an acrylic, an epoxy, or urethane? Maybe it's a slip sheet system. Each one of these can be addressed up front. There's no hidden at the end. We're not getting into an argument match with the general contractor on who's paying for this moisture mitigation if we're addressing subfloor prep and subfloor moisture up front. Better planning we can do, the more successful we'll be in the long run. So if we're planning to fail, if we do not address these subfloor issues up front, uneven slabs, existing floor covering that's coming loose, moisture in the concrete, weak gypsum upstairs, we're not meeting that customer expectation. When we get done with that completed project and we take a picture of it and we're getting ready to put it on LinkedIn, we're getting ready to put it on Instagram, it's not to that point that we'll be proud of it. Some pictures we're just taken down automatically. Your reputations become compromised. At the end result, the owner is looking at you as the professional. They're looking at you as the professional flooring, commercial flooring contractor associated with FCICA. They're also looking at the reputation of the floor covering that is put up top. So the material that is being installed is being judged on the amount of floor prep that is done ahead of time. So even if we get the best LVT on the market and we fail to do subfloor prep, then the reputation of that top LVT material will not meet that customer's expectations. Then your relationships get compromised. When you're ready for the next project, the owner does not want to rely on the top surface folks because the last job they did didn't come out as promised. And it's nothing to do with that material manufacturer. It has a lot to do with the subfloor prep that's underneath it. So we need to plan subfloor prep in our construction processes. So we're making sure we're getting this specified up front. We're getting it addressed up front in writing. Everyone knows exactly what the expectation is at the end. If we do not do that, then we wind up with time constraints. We get on the project, we're seeing problems with the floor covering finishing. We have to scramble to try to remove inferior workmanship. Then we wind up trying to scramble again to find just the right material, not necessarily the best material to fix the situation. It may be whatever's most available, may not be what's compatible. So don't get into a time constraint waiting to prepare when you're on the job site ready to pull glue or pull thin set. We need to do this up front. If we plan ahead, we can reduce our claims. Every manufacturer that is listening to this webinar will agree that the biggest thing we try to avoid is claims. It makes it no good for anyone in the industry. The flooring contractor gets involved, flooring manufacturers get involved, general contractors get involved, building owners get involved, and the only one that is at the end collects the money sitting on the table is your attorney. You're not getting the profit that you had desired. You're not getting the end result that you desired. You'll spend more money in Tylenol trying to get rid of the headache than you will putting profit in your pocket. So if we can do subfloor prep up front, we can maintain the reduction of claims and in the end have that successful installation that we're looking for. We can make sure at this point that we have quality construction, we have quality floor covering putting down, the reliability that this is going to work time and time again. We're giving good service to our customers. We're giving them a written warranty at the end to make sure that they are satisfied and ready to give us the next project. I want you as flooring contractors to be ultimately successful and to be successful with products hopefully you'll use with Schönox, because when that happens, then you're ready to give me the next project. If you're using top surface folks, you have success on this project, you're more likely to give them the next one. So we need to all work together to make sure this happens. Quality, reliability, service, and warranty. And lastly, I just want to mention that we do offer a full line for these subfloor solutions. Feel free to contact me at Technical Services. Your reps out there on the job sites, we can do that as well. several other manufacturers out there can help you with subfloor prep. I encourage you to reach out to each one of us to give us a chance to give you that successful installation. And we want to make sure that we service you well. We're going to open up for questions in here in just a moment. But for the last of it, we just want to say thank you. If you have any questions, we'll turn this back over to the FCICA folks, and we'll answer those as well. And thank you all, and talk to you soon.